Me? Oh, sorry.
That's exactly right. What's going on, everyone? This is Tyler Coates with Brian Swan, also known as Fibbo Swanee, here for the weekly live stream to take a look at the price action of Bitcoin. And as you heard, the score is right now 1-0 in favor of the St. Louis Cardinals, who won their first playoff game last night. And it is now the bottom of the first. Cardinals are up 1-0 in game number 2. So very exciting afternoon for me. Hopefully my mood doesn't turn too much if the Padres end up taking the lead here throughout this podcast. I've trained myself to kind of temper my emotions when the price action of Bitcoin's really moving, but that's not the same necessarily when the Cardinals start getting into the playoffs. So I'll be holding my breath over here, hoping that they hold strong, and I'll be definitely keeping my good luck bat here. I think that this could be what leads us to the World Series this year, having me supporting them with the Sawcruteez Sluggers. So thanks again very much to Fibbo for getting that to me. And yeah, with that being said, our other co-host Joe is feeling under the weather this week. He's going to try to pop in to give us a quick update, but for now it's just me and Fibbo, and I am definitely going to be excited to hear what he has to say. So how are things going over there, Fib?
Oh, no, doing pretty well. I was just saying that my bat is just not in comparison to your bat. And it goes good with my team right now, because I was saying I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan because that's where I was born, in Baltimore, and they're a shit team over the last couple of years because they did a rebuild. So I deserve to have a small bat for the Orioles this year, as they were absolutely terrible as predicted, and the worst. I think they had the worst record in baseball last year, so that's a good record to own. So we're doing pretty well.
Well, yeah, I guess you'll have to stick with them through thick and thin, as good sports fans do, and I guess
I've been with them since I was born, so I mean, got to keep going now. It's going strong. I had some good years in there. Don't get me wrong, it was fun, but whenever we beat the Yankees, that's all that matters.
Excellent. Well, all right. Yeah, it's definitely that time of year, baseball season, the hunt for October, the first day of October here. So that can traditionally be an interesting time for Bitcoin. The last kind of quarter of the year is generally when you get some significant volatility, and also some major tops and bottoms tend to occur around those months. So it'll be interesting to dive into some charts. I mean, unfortunately, the price really hasn't moved anywhere since last week, and with Fibbo and myself being looking at kind of some longer term stuff, I'm not sure how much our analysis has changed, as price just has gone sideways. But it will be interesting to see if Fibbo is seeing anything different, and then if you do have anything on a longer time scale to take a look at, if there really hasn't been anything changed since last week, then that would be great.
Yeah, no, I always have something. I'll throw something out here. Let me share my screen here. Oh, you got to let me. You got to disable. I'm disabled.
Okay, got it. Security share screen. There you go.
All right, cool. All right, share screen. Okay, I'm gonna start off with the 4 hour, because that's what got a little bit of action today. Actually, what happened today with the move lower on this red candle right here, it ended up breaking down into the bearish zone on the RSI, and also we had a crossover on the ADX. So with the move to the downside, I set the fibs here to give us that next shallow fib resistance going to the upside, which right now is around 10,612. So if you're looking at the near term, it's a little bit on the bearish side just from the 4 hour. But the interesting thing is, if you jump back to the threshold that was back here, that busted right at this point here, when it went up into the bullish zone, it moved up, made a high, and then it tested the 61.8% level at about 10.6. and held the whole entire time that it tested, went back up, and then it was today that it busted down below it. And now it's this is going to kind of be a resistance point at this point in time for the 4 hour. And the reason that I set the fibs already is because when you look at the 61.8% level at 10.6, it dropped all the way to the full retracement of where that initial threshold was at 10.4. And that's kind of where it went today on this wick down on the previous 4 hour candle that we saw around 4 o'clock Eastern time. So we got that 10.4 hit and kind of bounced. So it gave us a little bit of hope. But given that it's in the range, it did a full retracement off of this range. This could be a place to buy it on a dip right in here. But given that this is all in a bearish zone now, I'd kind of wait it out a little bit and kind of use the fibs as a resistance point going forward. So that was one of the main things that I saw. I put a target for now on the move to the downside around 10.2, and that's just off the extension off of this move. So if it does make a little bit further down, this is going to be a spot that a lot of buying interest could probably be found. Is that kind of that 10.2, 10.3 range, somewhere right around in there, and that's the first spot that I would actually look at, unless we started to break back up to the upside and got this thing going again. But right now, that's what's happening. A couple other things I saw, which was kind of interesting, but it really means nothing. But I thought it was kind of cool. The last time we went up into a threshold point here, went down, and came back down right here, right when it went into a bearish breakdown into the bear zone here, it was exactly 41 bars. And then it did it again, and this other one was exactly 41 bars, which I thought was really interesting. So from threshold to threshold is exactly the same amount of time, which I thought was really weird. I never really done timing on threshold to threshold before. I went back historically on the 4 hour and it didn't really show anything, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that the last two threshold periods that we saw were the exact same time frame on the 4 hour, which I just thought was kind of interesting. But the other thing I was going to throw in here, this is just something I look at. I don't really publish it very often, but there's an indicator called the Aroon. I don't know if anybody really knows about it, but it's one that I kind of use for really. It's a start of a trend type indicator, and I'll do a quick little 2-minute education on this real quick. But there's an Aroon up, which is this green line, and there's an Aroon down. And what the Aroon up does is it measures basically it's the prices in a 25. I always like the 25, and I'm OG because a lot of people will put in the 14 because that's what the package shows. But the 25 period, even on the 4 hour or even on the daily, is a number that works really well for the amount of periods to look at. But what it is over the last 25 periods, what it does is it measures if the price over the last 25 periods is making a high or not. So basically, if the current bar's high is the highest within in that defined period, which is the 25. Like today, when this went down on the 4 hour, this price made a new low over the last 25 periods, and that's why this Aroon down went straight to 100%. So it told you that there was a new low being made. But what you need to look for on this is the crossovers on it, and I mean the Aroon down is the same thing, or the Aroon up is the same thing. Is when that makes new highs, that goes up. Those kind of things. So what it does is it just measures how long it takes for it to make a new high over that period. But what I do is I look for the crossovers. So as you can see back here, you had the Aroon up right here that was kind of staying elevated, and then it crossed over, or the Aroon down crossed over to the upside here, where price made a new low. And at that point, we were seeing this happen, where we were breaking it down. The ADX was going toward the bears. The bearish zone was hitting, and we were also getting across on here. So this is another validator that I use to say, hey, maybe this trend is starting to work out. And then as you can see, it went into the bearish time, and then we got the momentum, and then it came down and it made new lows. And as you can see, as it made this new low, it went up to 100% right here. and then it went forward from there. And then we actually got the crossover a little earlier, but then we got a crossover right here to where the Aroon up went crossover here. And then that kind of told us, hey, maybe the bulls are going to be in control. We were in the bullish zone, but the difference between back here when the bears were in control, there was actually some really strong momentum. The momentum for this time period went down into the toilet and was down there for a long time. So we did a lot more sideways action than really trend. So the bulls were the ones that were in control of trend, but it was more of a sideways consolidation with the favor in the bullish direction. And as you can see here, they kind of ran parallel, and then we finally broke this to the upside here. At the same time, this all broke down. So that's one of the reasons why I'm saying, hey, let's wait for this target to the downside, because all this working together has given us a little bearishness there on the 4 hour. I mean, I don't want to go into the math of everything on that, but basically it's just if a new high for it's basically looking for new highs being made in a period. And when one hits 100%, so if you want to look at this just as a basic thing, if you hit 100%, you want the Aroon up to stay between 0 and 30%. So if this stays down in 0 to 30%, the trend should continue. So when it starts to get back up above 30%, then it could start to tail off and say, okay, the trend might be coming to an end, that kind of thing. So, but right now it just kind of gave us a little bit of a signal that the bear trend for the 4 hour kind of kicked in. So I don't know if anybody really knows about the Aroon, but I'm an OG, so I've been using the Aroon for a long time. But I use it for a validator. I don't really use it for trading or anything like that. I just kind of use it to help me see if we're making a new trend or not, kind of thing. So I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there. So what I'll probably do is maybe I'll do like a quick video on actually how to use it and all that kind of thing, because doing it right here on the show is not going to be the best thing in the world. But I just throwing it out there, just as another thing to add to the 4 hour to look at. So
that's an interesting one, and it reminds me of the Donchian channels. Are you familiar with those at all?
I'm familiar with them, but I haven't used them in a long time.
Okay, yeah, that's
but they are pretty similar though. They're pretty similar.
I think so. With the channels signaling when a price makes a new high for a specific period, and then vice versa, and that can be a really powerful tool that a lot of big money managers actually use to follow the trend. So I always call it the Aroon, maybe it's the Aroon, is the same, a similar sort of a tool to help just identify if the price is actually going up or down over a specific period of time. So definitely, thanks for sharing that. And
yeah, I don't know the actual pronunciation. I've always called it the Aroon. I know it's I think it's Sanskrit for
really?
something. Yeah, it means something like the dawn of a new day or something along the lines of like a new something or a new trend or something. I don't know what that means, but I don't know the pronunciation. But I've always said Aroon, but it could be Aroon for sure.
Yeah, sounds like you know more than me. It means it's Sanskrit for dawn's early light.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a new day or something like that.
And see that Joe just joined. I sure appreciate you making the time to stop in. It sounds like feeling a bit under the weather, so we appreciate you stopping in, and we'll send it over to you so we can get you back to bed.
Okay, I had a couple other charts, but no big deal. I'll throw it over to Joe.
We'll come back to you afterwards.
No problem.
Okay,
we gotta take care. We gotta take care of Sicky.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have mostly said go on without me, but I've been trading a lot, and so I'm connected enough to the market to where I feel like it was worth showing up here. So, anyways, I think normal things over here, just wrapped up in my nice little poncho, just trying to keep cozy. All right, so let me get on. I need you to allow me to do. Oh yeah, Fibbo. There we go. All right. So yeah, why don't we talk about this for a little bit? Been trading, been a little wild. I wouldn't say too wild. It's just been a little stressful, I would say. But I've been trading these signals, and you can see there's periods of time where you're underwater for quite some time before you get your money. So I've been going some not too heavy trades up over here, but taking the shorts, taking the longs. I think I mentioned in my Telegram group that this is going to be a stop and reverse that I take, even though I'm really not comfortable with taking a stop and reverse position that is short from here to not only a closed position short, but a flip position long. I just That's something that we've talked about before. You know, the certainty level of a trade is always tough. So I just I just feel like we should talk about it since it actually happened and it applies. So yeah, flipped long, and so I'm thinking that what we're starting to do is we're looking to create our next high, and if that's a lower high than the high 10Ks, then we're in a lot of trouble. The thing that has me a bit worried right now is that with this small move, very small recovery, we've already moved into what previously was not a bearish environment. Same price range, and even the dips down there with a much like a huge bid ask spread, and really only breaking that bid ask spread flip at levels closer to 11,000 or slightly above. So this is actually becoming bad news to me. I think we've consolidated up here for a long time, and this feels like one of those consolidations that isn't necessarily the stepping stone for a next large move up, but maybe a step back and then two steps forward. So that's just what the feel that I have on the market trading it right now. I'm glad to have gotten support, but this is not really too strong. I will say the best bullish thing that I could point out is that it did hit the 2.5 conditions for a buy, and I was watching this closely after I entered the market long. Oh, what? All right, I might have a candlestick maximum, but there was an example here of a buy on the 2.5 signals as well. So this was almost my confirmation. So I did get a buy signal down here, and that on SAS 2.5, which means that the SAS 2.5 and danger were in confluence. So that adds to my certainty level of my trade, which caused me to keep riding this thing out a bit longer. But we'll see where we get some sell signals. I might trade this signal to maybe a stop loss down here. It seems like we've tested this area a couple times and liked it. So I think I'll put my stop loss here, maybe exit 50% in the stop loss, maybe a little lower or something. But yeah, that's just my plan right now. I want to see this thing come back up, meet some resistance, which is starting to stack up heavily in the in the 10,000 high 10,000 range, and it's starting to become very significant up here. I'm talking 500 plus sell walls. And as you can see, we really don't have anything close to that on the buy side. Not saying that it's significant in one sense or another, just saying that right now it really seems to be that sellers are stacking the 11K range, and I think that means they think we're topping out up there. So there hasn't I wouldn't call this a hollow run, but it's starting to feel like the wind has left the sails, and so I'm getting ready for that stop loss, that last profitable piece of this trade before I can walk out with my hands clean and probably hopefully enter a short, maybe just cross no lev type of thing, capital preservation. But I do think short is probably going to be my next trade that I hang on to for a while, and it's possible we head down to break below 10K and change this market structure. But I'm sick right now. I'm seeing things, feeling things differently. Who knows?
Well, sure appreciate you taking a look at the order book and sharing what you're seeing. That is definitely sounds like pretty closely in line with what Fibbo is looking at, with this being really in danger of reversing into a bit of a bear trend, at least in the maybe short medium term.
Wow, you said that, Fibbo?
A little bit, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
in the near term for sure. I'll show you what I'm talking about. On the
I'm
4
feeling a
hour.
lot better about what I said now. I like when Fibbo agrees with me. I don't really care if Sock does.
Oh, slam.
Oh,
No, but one thing I was looking at was on the 4 hour, we went into the bearish zone. We had a crossover on the ADX. We broke this trend line that I just drew in there. Cause one of the things that I was also looking at, which I could just draw in here real quick. I always take like the highest point above a trend line, and then you look at the break and then move that same rate of change from the break point right here. As you can see, if you take that rate of change from the high to the trend line, and then you take that same distance, you meet right on the edge of that extension to the downside. So that puts us right around 10.3. So that target, the near term target on the 4 hour, and I said the target for now is around 10.2 or 10.3. So that's the first spot to look at. Now, if price approaches that level and momentum gets all crazy and all ballistic, then you have to move over to the daily side. And this is where I've been just kind of waiting in this, I call it the liminal space. I'm really just kind of waiting to see a breakdown of this 10.3, which is this trend line right here. And then if this breaks, you can kind of use the same kind of method. On this, I would take this distance here and then move it to the downside. Just to say that it broke today, we're looking at 9.2. So if we broke down today at this point, 9,200 would be the target on the break of 10.3. So the reason I haven't done anything is I didn't really do anything on the 4 hour because we've been consolidating. And then really the daily is where I've been wanting to wait for a signal. But with the daily being, the bears are in control of the trend on the ADX, and we've been in a bearish zone. I just been kind of sitting back and waiting. So I don't want it to break, of course, but if it does, then 9.2 would be my target off of this. I moved a couple things there. I'm just saying, like if you broke at a different time, like if you went all the way to the apex of the pattern, then you're looking at like, what is it, like 9.6. So it just all depends on when that trend line breaks to the downside. Now, if it gets going the other way, which is kind of interesting, my measurement for the way this pattern goes up and the way I like to measure things is if it goes this direction, it's a much better move. So if we broke above to the upside here, that's when we start to get up into that 13.2 to that previous high. But until then, I'm sitting in this range, and we're going to break out one way or the other eventually, because we're getting into tighter part of the apex here. So I'm just waiting on the daily. But given that it's all bearish, that's why I've been kind of waiting for a buy at 9,200. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, and it's been kind of boring, but I'm still kind of sitting there waiting for that on there. So that's really all I had for what's going on, since we haven't really done much, but we're still in this waiting pattern on the daily. So it kind of matches up what you're saying, Joe.
Yeah, so that would mean Stock is scared because he doesn't like when we're channeling sideways, and that's my comfort zone. And if my comfort zone is saying we're going down, then you're saying the same thing. Curious to hear what Stock has to say.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and dive right in. I was feeling very good about things basically up until this morning. That recent move down has started to threaten to change some things for me. So let's go ahead.
Hey, before you jump into the charts, to put yourself into a good mood, it's 4-0, by the way.
Oh boy, that's some sweet action. I didn't see that. Thanks for the update.
Hey, no problem.
Runs in the second. Now we're talking. What do we got? Colton Wong, 400-foot homer to deep right field. Now we're talking. Bitcoin can do whatever it wants as long as the Cardinals win.
Well, don't say that. As it drops to 3,500.
Okay, so was kind of just not really paying too much attention as price was just going nowhere for about a week. We had this very tight sort of range that, like I said, was looking really good up until a few hours ago. because what I was paying attention to myself is these moving averages, the 50 and the 200. Last time we got this bounce, we came up and we tried, we resisted the 200, supported, 50 coming in for a golden cross, and then boom, we dump right before the golden cross happens. And then here, we were not quite looking as strong as back here, being that we were resisting the 200 strongly here. And when we popped back above, we failed to turn it into support, but the 50 EMA was just holding very strong. So as the 200 was trying to resist price, and it was failing to support, the 50 was just holding very strongly and moving up and up and up and up. And then right in here was where things started to look good, because we had been stuck in this tight sideways range for so long that it started to get to come to a head where price needed to start to make a move one way or the other. We couldn't just stay here forever. And when this continued to hold support off of this kind of lower trend line in this 50 EMA, and then we popped back above, creating, now we've got higher high, higher low, higher high. Now it's really looking to me like this golden cross is going to come in and that we would be ready to continue to the upside. And instead, we came up and resisted here and turned around and not only tested the bottom of this trend line, but have now had a couple candles entirely below it, with the 50 now price back now below the 50 for the first time. This was basically the only candle that was below the 50 was right here. And now we've got this full candle below here, with this candle kind of acting as an inside bar so far. But if we are unable to support this level here of 10.75, then what it would start to look like to me is that we're needing to revisit this cluster of markers, which is weighting down in here from 78 to 85. So that would be basically where I would be looking for this thing to move if it takes out these local lows. My stops are layered below this area. And if we do make another little kind of head fake down, then this top of the ocean really needs to hold as support. And being that it's already been tested a few times, I really wouldn't even want it to come down and test there. So if it does come down, take out these lows, I'd be getting stopped out, and I would be looking to rebuy at this area of horizontal markers from EMASAR, which would be my target and also my high probability of support. So that is certainly got me sitting up on the edge of my seat, biting my fingernails a little bit, as we have now taken out these lows here and failed to get that golden cross here. This maybe is just a little head fake, a little balk to the downside before continuing up to wipe out anybody who did have their stop set right here. And that is something that I am seeing some decent signs of, in terms of this local low that held for like a week would have been a spot where a lot of stops would have been set for longs. And when you come down and you just wick below that level and then quickly pop back above, well, that is the first kind of sign that of some sort of trap where the price comes down and takes out all the stops, but that flood of sellers is no match for the buyers that are there waiting to get the liquidity from that move. And if we are able to just, wick below, pop back above, and then sustain above, notice how this is now trying to turn that level into support with that candle that just closed as an inside bar. Now there are some signs that are kind of pointing towards this being a run on stops. And if that is the case, then I would definitely be expecting more upside. And if we do get more upside, the target is 13.9 for me. So we're in a spot right now where we've been in this range, kind of consolidating between 12 and 10 for a while, and therefore about a $2,000 range, kind of similar to Fibbo, how he's looking at the trend lines. Is you can do it same thing with if you get some sort of range where if you are, let's say that our range is right here to here, and we keep moving sideways in between that. Once that breaks, then using the depth of this range to measure a move one way or the other makes a lot of sense, and it would line up pretty well with this target that I had here, and then that could potentially line up with that kind of 13.9 level there. So I do think that once this range is broken, that we should make a big move one way or the other. And anytime that the trend gets really, really close to reversing is often when it's going to be like the best time to buy. Bitcoin has a uncanny knack to get within a whisker of really breaking down and falling apart right before getting a nice reversal to the upside. It will move to a place where people get scared and or get stopped out, and then it is going to go ahead and take off. So this is a spot where I am sitting up on the edge of my seat, kind of biting my fingernails a little bit, and definitely worried about this thing reversing. But until it does, I'm just going to expect the trend to continue, and that is basically going to be how I go about it. So here's kind of a bit of a channel, sort of curved channel that I have drawn, starting from the lows, connecting to the highs, and the median is this yellow line. So something that I'm keeping my eye on is last time when we came down and tested support, we had this trend line that when we broke through, we went ahead and took off towards the top of that. And that's, again, why I was thinking things were looking good, yesterday and still today for the most part on this higher time frame, is that we come down, we test the bottom threshold, wick below, find strong support, break through this trend line, and now potentially throwing back to retest it for support. So this could be, like, as far as I'm concerned, a really good opportunity just to take a stab, because the risk reward is so well defined in terms of here we are retesting the trend line, throwing back to retest this trend line. We have a higher low here, and we have been moving up this whole time, such that entering here is the strike rate would be low, because it could very easily just break down, but the risk reward would be very favorable if you're able to use a stop, only 5% away from the price. Generally, I'm needing stops that are like 10-15% of the way away from price for me to not get chopped out. And when I find a situation where I could use a reasonable stop that's around 5% away, something like this, then that is going to be a situation where I would sacrifice strike rate due to the risk reward increasing. And that is a kind of a balance. If you have a really, really good risk reward, generally you're not going to have a very good strike rate. And if you have a really good strike rate, generally your risk reward isn't going to be too great. So that's something to keep in mind. But right here, it's kind of at that spot where I was describing earlier, where Bitcoin will go to the edge of a cliff. It'll look over the edge of the cliff. Maybe it'll look over it multiple times and maybe even hang off of it and make you really, make it just really seem like this thing could just go do something like this in the next minute, and instead it starts creeping upwards. So right here, we're peeking over the edge of the cliff, and if we don't find strong support in these levels, then I would expect a significant move down. But like I said, I'm expecting support to hold until it doesn't, and this is going to be a strong area of support as far as I can tell, because it's a throwback to this trend line, as well as testing this trend line here. And then if we are able to, do something similar to what happened here, that again would be right here, 13.9 territory is what I am continuing to expect with very little confidence. I'm basically 50-50 right now in terms of, is this going to break down or is it going to find support? And when I'm 50-50 and the trend is bullish, then I'm just going to assume that the trend is going to continue. And when we're at a confluence of support, I'm going to expect that support to hold until it doesn't. And I'm also going to expect to get some vicious head fakes that really make it look like support is breaking and that we're falling off the edge of the cliff. And I want to do my best to try to avoid those head fakes while also making sure that I'm going to be protecting myself in the event that we do break down and make a sharp move back down to these levels here. One last thing to take a look at would be a potential big W that was looking much better yesterday than it is today with the move down here, the bounce here, move down, and then something like that. It would be confirmed if we take out 11.2. So this hasn't been confirmed yet, but it is still, in my mind, looking good as long as we're above this level here. And as long as we're above this level, and for sure, as long as we're above this level, the big W pattern would still be intact. So that is something that I'll be keeping in my mind. And it's a little bit better than normal, being that it is a higher low. Often big W's will be a equal low. And if you have one that is a higher low, that's just a little bit extra bullish. It tells you you're kind of forming a W in a trend, opposed to maybe trying to reverse a bear trend with a double bottom or forming a double bottom in a range. A big W with a higher low is significantly better for me when it is going in line with the trend. All right, that is pretty much everything, excuse me, that I had. I think that this is a very critical area here, and I will continue to sit up on the edge of my seat as we dance around that. And I will also be keeping my eye on the Cardinals here. Both of them are going to be having me feeling extra anxious. So hopefully I'm able to make it through these next few days without too many more gray hairs.
Awesome. We'll go Cards for you. There you go.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so I am, it's looking like, I guess we are finishing up earlier than normal, which is to be expected when we've got a price not really going anywhere. There just isn't going to be a whole lot to share in addition to what we had talked about previously. So wrapping up early is, I guess, going to be a good thing to do to get Joe back.
I can do a summary, little summary recap real quick. I want to just show the levels to watch in case anybody jumped in lately. First of all, the trend line break on the 4-hour gives us a target of around 10.3. So if you're looking at the 4-hour, a target to the downside is about 10.3. You move over to the daily, and that 10.3 becomes a support on this trend line. Now, if momentum on the 4-hour or even momentum build on the daily as price approaches that 10.3, the break of that trend line was the 9,200 that we talked about. So that's the next level to watch. So if this 10.3 breaks, let me do the arrow real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. The movement from there, I'm doing it real quick. But if it breaks pretty soon, you're looking at around that 9.2 to 9.4 range, which is that extension. And then if you jump out to the weekly, the latest threshold on the weekly is that 9,300 area. So if this drops all the way down to that level on the daily at 9,300, in the long term, this level could still hold and we could still stay in the bullish zone and still be bullish long term. So that would be the line in the sand here, is if this weekly broke down that 9,300. So those are the levels to watch that I'm looking at least on the fib side, is a move to 10-3 first, based on this 4-hour break that we just had. And then if the momentum builds and the 10-3 breaks, then you're looking at 9,200. And then the 9,200 needs to hold. And if not, it's going to be ugly. But those are just the levels that I'm looking at. So I just want to do a little recap of the levels to watch on the 3 different time frames. So
great. And I guess we can just take a minute to chat about Bitmex since we have some time, and a number of people seem very interested in the recent developments with them fighting the CFTC and the recent news that has come out about that. A number of people asking in the chat. It's something that I'm just don't really care at all about myself. This is a type of thing that is entirely uninteresting to me. I don't expect outside of not my ability being limited to trade on Bitmex, or the commissions that I was earning through the affiliation, that matters to me for sure. But in terms of them getting shut down or getting in any sort of legal trouble, I don't think we'll have any impact on the price of Bitcoin. And if something like that does cause price to sell off, then it would be a picture perfect opportunity to buy if people are selling the news, to buy that response, because I just cannot imagine a world where a leveraged derivative exchange going down is going to impact the fundamentals or the price of Bitcoin in any more than a few hours or a knee-jerk sort of reaction. And if it does, then that would maybe really make me reconsider how much of the value of Bitcoin is derived from derivative and margin traders, which I do not think that there is any impact on the actual price of Bitcoin from margin traders who are always having to close out positions that are open. The supply and demand on a net basis is zero, and it would have zero impact on the actual price of Bitcoin. Whereas if something like Coinbase went down, like an actual fiat on-ramp that many people use to buy and hold Bitcoin, if that went down, then now that's a much different story, because it would limit people's access to buying and investing in Bitcoin, opposed to just speculating on margin. And the only reason that would have an impact is because there just aren't that many fiat on-ramps available right now that people can use. So for me, any Bitmex news is a complete nothing burger, and I'm not interested in even really following the news. They've made a lot of money. They've done what they've done, and now they're facing the repercussions, and maybe they get away with it, maybe they don't. It's not going to affect me, and I really don't think it's going to affect Bitcoin. So before signing up, if you guys have any thoughts on that yourselves.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is, and I know this is kind of basically a cop out to not talk about it, but I'm a technical analyst, so in theory, I don't really give a shit about the news at all. So if the news matters, it'll show up in my indicators. So when news like this comes out, I don't want to get emotional about it. And of course, when the news came out, there was a little bit of a sell-off, and that's just because that's just a news reaction. But in the long term, I don't think it's going to matter. Like what you're talking about, Bitcoin is out to be, it was made to change the world when it comes to currency. So if things come in that will break that down, then that'll be a problem. But like you said, leverage trading, to me, the news came out, it changed the 4-hour a little bit. We moved down into the 4-hour and gave us a little bit lower target, but it hasn't changed the overall structure of the market. So to me, that news doesn't matter to me at all. So I know it's kind of a cop out to not talk about it, but now if it would have broken the structure and the next thing we know, we're at like 7,000 and it just went absolutely nuts to the downside, then yeah, then it would matter to me, but otherwise it's nothing. So I'm a technical guy. I don't follow the news. So that's just the way it is.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would argue that isn't a cop out at all, and it actually kind of made me realize a different form of liminal space is people that really don't have full belief and trust in the technicals, and they either have full belief and trust in the fundamentals, or they have some sort of combination when a news event happens that they can't fully understand with their paradigm. That's when they are now thrust into the liminal space. And that's what I always find so interesting about people who really use fundamentals or who disparage technicals, is that there'll be a big price move that'll happen, and you'll see them come around like, where's the news? Why did this happen? What caused this to happen? And then there will be another time where a big news item comes out and the price really isn't doing much, and they're like, oh, what's going to happen because of this news? This news just happened, and it's got to be a big deal. So it's kind of interesting.
It's the number one. I think it's the number one cause for people to buy or sell when they don't need to be doing it. I mean, most of the time. Now, there are times when something comes out that's pretty important, but most of the time, if news comes out and it just doesn't mean anything, it's not going to break down the structure of the market. It just isn't, unless there's something that there's big enough that it's going to break it down or break it the other way. Who knows? But I follow the indicators, and I've learned to try to keep the emotion out of it. Because like you said, a news item comes out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do something. It's going to zero. And you just do crazy things. You just need to step back and trust the plan that you have in place, and trust the indicators that you follow. That's really, I mean, what it boils down to. So.
It really, what you were saying made me think about it a little bit deeper in terms of it wasn't a cop out to not answer. It was basically you saying that this isn't causing you to experience liminal space because you are very comfortable with the technicals. No matter what news happens, you're going to find it in your technicals, and that isn't going to cause you to enter that liminal space. Whereas I hadn't really thought of the idea of people who are really, valuing fundamentals, which is there's plenty of merit there for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm not discrediting that at all.
Yeah, I hadn't related the idea that where they may experience liminal space, like you and I experience it in a range, maybe Joe experiences it in a trend, and the guys that are following the fundamentals, anytime the price doesn't react exactly how they expect it to based on the news that came out, or anytime there isn't news to justify the recent price action, now they're stuck in liminal space. Like, well, why did this just happen? I need an explanation. So it's just an interesting kind of way for me to think about that. So I would say no cop out, and it's just a way for it's a clear.
Yeah, different people approach it differently, and I'm just a 99% technical guy. I barely ever, and I do the 1% because you can't get rid of all your bias, and you do hear news. So I try to keep that out of my head, but I mean, everybody has it. So, I mean, I just try to keep to what I'm doing, but sometimes it's hard because you do hear news and you do hear this, and, and it gets a little rough sometimes, but yeah, no, I like what you're saying with that. You have to put yourself in a fundamental person's shoes and try to figure out where their emotion gets really, really crazy from one threshold to the next. And that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I've been seeing, is it seems like a lot of people experiencing some liminal space with the Bitmex news, that they're all like capitals, Bitmex, talk about Bitmex. What's going on with Bitmex? Like it's like clear that people are feeling very uncomfortable, despite, that, and maybe the price hasn't really done enough to justify that feeling. Any thoughts that you have there, Joe, about the recent developments with Bitmex and how it may relate to the price?
I think it's also a nothing burger. I think that it's important in the community. I think Bitmex has served a purpose. I think Bitmex might have done some shady shit, and I think that's probably why they're going down, or at least what they're accused of. I know the rumors of why the CFTC would go after Bitmex is not necessarily the KYC stuff as much as the trading against the trader stuff. I also just personally hate Bitmex, so I don't give a shit. But I just think the news isn't going to affect the price of of Bitcoin, and yeah, it's this little sell-off is fine, but like Fibbo said, and honestly, I think he said it the best way I've ever heard it, man. I was short for a complete other different reason than Bitmex going down or getting KYC'd or whatever the fuck, you know, get CFTC'd. I was short for all different reasons, right? So I'm just gonna keep playing this one, and you know, just almost ignore the news completely entirely on this one. I just don't think this news is important for any reason other than maybe people losing affiliate revenue XYZ. But that's it.
I mean, the market did move 2%. I mean, that's basically what what happened off of that.
But I was already short. You know, I'm not
No,
even gonna blame this 2% move on Bmex. You know.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Like it's only a 2% move, and with that news that came out, everyone would probably say that was it. But do they really know that was it? They don't. I mean, it could be 1,000 other things. But
yeah.
but of course, the community is so talking about it so much that they think that that's what it is. Now there could have been an initial, you know, something getting it started. Who knows? But if it didn't move 20%, so to me it didn't break structure. So I don't.
Well, let's put it like this: if anything, we should have seen a ton of Bitcoin moving from the Bitmex wallets, and that would take at least a number of hours due to their Bitcoin sending and policy and stuff. So if anything, what we should have seen is higher fees, because the last thing you would expect is people to fucking, you know, Bitmex to have an effect on price because it's an exchange. So how the fuck would this exchange have an effect on price? You know, if maybe it's getting CFTC'd or whatever, that just means people should be moving their corn. It doesn't mean people should be like shorting Bitmex, you know, shorting fucking Bitcoin on Bitmex even more now. It just makes no sense to me at all. It means get the fuck out of there, you know? Like, so if we saw a massive increase.
You bring up a really good point, and it actually made me just think of something in terms of that, yeah, like maybe the only thing that you should really see is a short-term spike in the funding rates, or not the funding rates, excuse me, the network fees from a big amount of people withdrawing, that it'll take them 24 hours or so to process that, and then you have the mempool gets flooded, and it takes longer for a few transactions, and they're a little bit more expensive for like a day. Yeah, that is basically what the effect should be. But what I just thought of is that if you're needing to withdraw your Bitcoin from Bitmex, is that the first thing you're going to need to do is close your position. So if everybody on Bitmex is going to be withdrawing, well, the first thing they're going to have to do is close their position. And if mostly longs are in profit, then they're going to be more interested on, like, I'm just going to get out because I'm in a long and I'm in profit. I'm just out and I'm moving on. Whereas if you're maybe in a short, you are more wanting to hold on to wait for a little bit of a better price before you get out. So this is entire speculation. But the other avenue would be, who was there more longs or shorts on Bitmex before, and if all of a sudden everybody closes their position and there just so happen to be more longs than shorts, then they're going to be a little bit more selling pressure that maybe reacts in a 2% decrease in the price, just because there was that many more longs than shorts that had to close out by market selling before they could withdraw their Bitcoin. So maybe the reaction to the news was less people being afraid of how that will affect the price of Bitcoin, and more just like, all right, I need to get out of my position and get off of this website. And the net amount of the positions being long or short could then determine where that following price move goes. And that's entire speculation. But what I'm really thinking about is if people were selling that news for one reason or another, and we're right that it's a complete nothing burger, and that they're wrong for selling that news, then that would mean that this is the perfect buying opportunity, as Bitcoin's, you know, kind of peeking its eye over the edge of a cliff and really threatening changing market structure. But if it's able to hold strong there in the face of some people selling a news event, then that would be really good confirmation to me that we'd be ready to make a sharp move to the upside if we are able to maybe get that golden cross. So a little bit of rambling, but you made me think that potentially the net longs versus shorts exiting positions is what could have potentially started some sort of slip down, and then the momentum comes, and then before you know it, you've got that 2% sell off. And
I
again,
just saw I just saw somebody gave you some a tip in there. The message was retracted, so I don't know what Adam was trying to say, but
Oh
just wanted to say thanks on that. Got a 200 Czech Corona. Might get you some Czechoslovakian beer, man.
that's what's up, man. That's a love and generous gift.
Yeah, appreciate you noticing that. And yeah, I guess last thing to say was my ramble there is kind of a good reason why I'm so uninterested in this stuff is you can just screw your head into the ground trying to think about what fundamentals cause this little tiny price movement and what may be the next reaction. And there's just so many ways that like any fundamental event can be interpreted 5 different ways. And I can have, plenty of fun trying to drive my head into the ground, trying to figure out what sort of explanation makes sense. But the reality is that I'm usually wrong, and it's usually just pure speculation and guessing. And the other thing that really made me believe in technical analysis as well as market manipulation more than anything else is noticing kind of what Joe just talked about in terms of the times where you will get a signal to go short, and then a couple hours later, the news comes out where there was like all this selling pressure that happened right before the news came out. And if you're following the technicals, you're actually able to kind of join these guys that are front running the news, that have the insider information. They're making the moves, and the stuff that they do should generate signals in the system that you have, hopefully before that news event comes out. And that happening time and time again for myself, where I get a signal and everything goes great and I just think is normal. And then I notice, oh, there was a news event that came out right after that. Makes me really wonder, how many people front run news when it is significant. And therefore, if that's happening, then it's completely trying to trade the news loses all its worth to me if I can front run the news by if there's enough insiders trading it that affects my technical indicators, if that makes sense. So that I'm glad to hear what you guys had to say about that, because I agree that it's something.
Yeah, one of the ways I tackle it, this is the way I tackle things. When I do my technical analysis, I do it in a vacuum as much as possible. And then after I do my analysis, I will go out and I will try to look at some fundamentals. Not so much news items that are coming out, but like what's some of the fundamentals that are happening out there in whatever market I'm looking at. Now, if my technicals match up with what the fundamentals are showing and they're both kind of bullish, that gives me a little bit more comfort to stay long in my positions. Now, if they don't work and they're kind of opposite each other, then I stick to my plan because I'm a technical guy. But that doesn't mean that the fundamentals could move the market quicker. But what I'll see is that they'll start to move in my indicators. So I think that the technicals and fundamentals can really work well together. It's just that when I do my analysis, I don't bring any anything or any news into what I'm looking at. And then I use that as a validator on the back end. So that's just how I approach it. I know everybody's going to approach things differently, but I just wanted to, give my 2 cents on what's going on there. So I know everybody else does different things, but that's how I approach it.
I appreciate it. And I'll share, I guess, my thoughts is I'm very similar to you, but maybe a little bit different. I would say that I'm maybe 95% technical analysis, whereas you mentioned being 99%. And the way that I approach it, I don't remember where I heard this from, but it resonated, and it's made sense for me ever since, in that 95% of the fundamental events, the fundamental newses are nothing, whereas 5% of them are everything. And that the idea is that there's going to be about one fundamental event every year or two that drives the following major trend. Anytime a major trend occurs, it's generally sparked on by a major fundamental event. Like maybe Bitmex going down is going to be the end of Bitcoin. Maybe. I think there's 0.001% chance, but maybe that's the case. And this is the fundamental event that sparks a 2-year bear trend to the downside to below 1,000 or whatever. I don't think that's happening, but maybe it is. And in every market, it seems to be like you'll you'll either continue on the same trend to the same rise over run, same direction, or the same range until a big enough news event comes in that will actually change that market structure and cause for the following prolonged trend to happen. So I really try to line up my trades with fundamentals and technicals. In that situation, I am able to bet much bigger. And that's something that I was talking a lot about recently with Bitcoin halving and me getting buy signals on EMASAR. Like that's the perfect setup where you've got the fundamental event that happens every couple of years that should drive the next 2-year trend, as far as I'm concerned, as a high probability of doing so. And then you also get a technical buy signal. So now that's where I'm going to be betting very, very big in relation to when I am betting against what is the prevailing sort of fundamental move. And then when the fundamentals and the technicals line up, when the crypto market turned bearish in 2018, I had a lot of luck shorting altcoins, because now the technicals and the fundamentals are lining up, where I was very bearish the fundamentals, and finally when the technicals turn bearish, now I'm in a position to go ahead and make some moves. So I do think it is very important to combine the two, but that the 95% of the news events that people pay attention to or that think have any impact in price actually are just nothing burgers, and it's just moves inside of the longer trend that was sparked on by a much bigger fundamental event. In this case, not only do we have the halving, but we've also got the recent money printing from the Fed. So it's tremendously bullish fundamentals. When you compare that to Bitmex going down, it's just, I mean, nothing even in the same territory or the same ballpark, if you will.
Say ballpark.
All right. Well, I guess
that makes sense. That makes sense. Good stuff.
With all that being said, we have now gone to our full hour and even a few minutes past. So that is some good stuff. We've got the Cardinals still up 4-0. Now we've got the top of the fourth, and my man Adam Wainwright is on the mound when he's got a 4-run lead. I'm feeling pretty good about it. So hopefully we can take that lead, and next week we'll be back with Cardinals moving on.
There you go.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Heal up, Joe. Heal up.
Yep. Joe, you need to heal up and get better soon, so that that we don't have to wait for your pretty face to come and join us next time. And thank you all for participating in the chat. To Adam for the very generous tip, and as well to Mark, big shout out. Thank you for.
Hey, Mark. Thanks, man.
For the tip as well. We'll have to get some poker going again, so you can win that money back from me.
Or at least you could try, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. All right. Well, that being said, we will go ahead and sign off, and we'll sign off with a Bitcoin and Cardinals going to the moon.
There we go. Perfect.